Hello, everybody. This is Aditya from the Foundation for Democratic Reforms. And today we are sitting with Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan to try and understand the whole controversy around the H1B visas and the new policy that the Trump government has brought forward. Hello, sir.
Hello, Aditya.
Sir, before I begin into the whole context of the whole debate, I just want to understand, as the President of the United States, what could be the logic and rationale behind this decision in the first place?
From the official documents accompanying the presidential order, it appears that they're concerned about the relative increase in unemployment of the STEM graduates, science, technology, engineering, and medicine graduates in universities. Apparently, what used to be about 2.3% or so unemployment in the American graduates, it's now increased to 5.6 or something. Not a dramatic increase, something like 5% plus. But even the 2-3% increase, they're perturbed because in America, in the earlier era, the expectation is if you're a graduate, you'll be definitely employed. Increasingly, that's no longer true with humanities. But STEM technologies, the expectation is if you have a decent graduation, you will definitely get American employment because the service sector, high technology, artificial intelligence, robotics, and so on and so forth. So they feel that while H1B is meant for limited purposes of bringing highly skilled people with high wages, many Indians are attracted and the companies are not paying very high wages. And when there is talent available within the country, they are still recruiting H1B people because the expectation under the rules is an employer must be able to certify that he's not able to find an employee with the same skills and qualifications in the United States. Only then can they take H1B visa entrants. So that appears to be the official thing. It may well be part of the reason. The other part of the reason is as Indians seem to be doing reasonably well in the high-tech sector, and they probably are a majority in the H1B visas in the United States. And because Indians as an ethnic group seem to be the richest ethnic group in per capita income terms, because Indians going to the United States tend to be well qualified, skilled, generally tend to go to the high-end jobs. There is some amount of envy. And of late, I think some of the expatriate Indians in the United States also are exhibiting their success and wealth a little more openly than they used to earlier. Earlier, they used to mingle in the society, be low-key, did not assert their identities. And there's no criminal gang of Indian origin in the United States, unlike many other ethnicities where there are criminal gangs operating. So generally, our people acquired a good reputation in their society. But partly envy, partly a bit of triumphalism, which is not a good thing because it's bad for Indian brand, bad for Indians in the US, bad for the next generation Indians who might like to want to go to US for higher studies or employment, etc. That also may have contributed. So a combination of these circumstances.
So now we'll get into the details of it. So it talks about $100,000 annual fees that the employer has to pay. As of now, before this policy change, it somehow ranged between up to $1,500, couple of reports says, and then if you add on attorney charges for certain specific things, it might have increased.
The highest probably was about 10,000 for the medical.
Yes, for 10,000. So do you think in a scenario where America was looked up to as sort of an aggregator of the best talent of the world, that image will break because employers will not be able to pay this much?
For about 100 years, America's USP for the rest of the world is whatever be the talent, whichever field, the front end of the talent, it always wished to migrate to the United States. If you take the Nobel laureates from the United States, most of them are not of American origin in sciences and technology. But the best talent, from an Einstein to an Oppenheimer, they all moved to the United States for a period of time because the country had the ability to attract and give opportunities for entrepreneurship, for scientific research and development, and so on and so forth. And of course, the freedom. This certainly goes counter to that. But they have also cleverly done one thing. They have given themselves the power to exempt any group of people in any sector as they please. For instance, medical personnel, the latest information I understand is that they will be exempt because there is a shortage of highly skilled medical human resources. And medical training is extraordinarily difficult, costly, highly skilled, years and years of struggle to acquire those skills. So they realize that they need them. Similarly, in other sectors, wherever they feel there's a genuine problem, I'm sure they'll happily exempt without going to legislature or something. So that may not be too much of a problem. And at the really high end, I don't know if individually also they can exempt, but there's nothing that precludes them from exempting on grounds of exceptional talent, etc. So I think they retained that ability, but in general, America will not be the kind of magnet it was. It attracted the best talent. The young population kept going to that country. That's why, unlike in Europe, though the birth rates in America or the fertility rates are roughly the same as in Europe, except for the immigrant population, the population contained at a reasonable level, it was growing at a reasonable level, again generating demand and therefore economic growth. But now, if they foreclose that entry of the talent, they'll lose talent and entrepreneurship, and they will also lose the demographic advantage over time. But that will be felt only after a considerable amount of time. It also depends on the rigidity with which these rules are applied.
So, sir, my next question also is in the same ballpark of the American society right now, right? President Trump also made another offering, which was the gold card, right? So you made certain amount of investment in America, and you can get a permanent residency of the country. Do you think with these policies in place, America is on the way of becoming from a traditional merit-based society converting to a wealth-based society now?
That is a very explicit ambition of President Donald Trump, clearly. Otherwise, it is somewhat absurd to think of people having to pay $5 million to have the privilege of getting accelerated citizenship in the United States. Because people who can afford that kind of spare cash merely for that extra opportunity, they can probably do anything anywhere in the world anyway, even in today's world. But Mr. Trump believes that there are easy ways to fill the budgetary deficit in the US. In fact, one of the prime motivators in his mind of this whole tariffs is not merely to enhance the competitiveness of his own indigenous industry by preventing import of goods, but also the import tariffs will give a significant amount of revenues. He's expecting some $300 billion. Similarly, he is forcing the other countries as part of the trade deals to put significant amount of money in the United States. The latest reports indicate it's not even that investment will be of their choice. South Korea about $350 billion, Japan $500 billion. It's not even normal commercial decision taken by the enterprises or the sovereign governments. But the President Trump is saying, you put it there and I'll decide what to do. So these are all things that never happened in history. I only heard of one parallel. MBS, Mohammed bin Sultan, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, if you remember some years ago, he summoned all his Khandan, his cousins and the people who belong to the royal family, distant royal family, some hundreds of them. Many of them are billionaires with oil wealth and all kinds of things. He locked them up in a hotel room and said, you pay billions now because I know you are indulging in corrupt activity, this, that, etc. Or else I will ensure that there's severe penalties. And in Saudi Arabia, it could even be execution. Billions upon billions of dollars are paid by his own cousins and others to the state exchequer, I presume, in order to get out of that. And everybody knew that Saudi Arabia at that time, perhaps even now, doesn't really have rule of law. The ruling family and the crown prince is the absolute ruler. Nobody expected that to have that kind of a situation to prevail in a rule-bound democratic system of rule of law. But President Trump clearly has another idea in mind and is behaving this way. Now, to what extent it will yield results, because he at one time said 1 million people will come. That means $5 trillion. Now, $5 trillion is larger than India's GDP. And they have, I think, right now about $37 trillion deficit. So, with one pen stroke, without any cost to the American economy or society, he hopes that he will be able to recuperate $5 trillion. I think things will be much more circumspect. People will not be so casual. A few people certainly will go. But you can see, instead of what the one point you raised is very important. America has been always a free and liberal market economy. But America is always an egalitarian society. In India, for instance, your servant maid or your driver, chauffeur, it's almost unthinkable that they'll sit with you and enjoy a meal at home. or they'll call you by first name. It's unthinkable because of feudal culture, hierarchies, and all that. In America, it's very common. The first time I visited the United States, when I saw a maid in the house of my host calling him by first name, it was obvious that's the way society should behave, but we are raised in a different culture. So that is the kind of society. That no matter where you're born, your education, your skill, your hard work, and your ability to contribute to society, they shape your future. And they celebrate success. There's no envy in Americans, generally speaking, about success of others relative to the rest of the world. So such an egalitarian society increasingly is now becoming a bit like Indian society. Your birth determines your future.
Yes.
Your skin color determines your future. And that's why one of the comments made by very perceptive economists and researchers is the vertical mobility from the bottom quintile to top quintile and reverse mobility from top quintile to bottom quintile used to be much more common in the United States 30 or 40 years ago. Today, it's become much harder for the bottom quintile to rise to the top and much more difficult for the top quintile to go down either because their families also becoming a bit like Indian families, taking care of their own if they have enough money, giving them a leg up, not only money but educational opportunities, pay the college fee and so on and so forth. While part of it is good because families are becoming stronger at some level. Part of it is the problem is, like in India, birth is increasingly determining the future of the children. So I think in the long term, if this trend continues, American society also may undergo some slow transformation.
Sir, now I want to bring this discussion back to India. Last year's stats suggest that 71% of the H1B visa applicants who were selected were Indians. And within that as well, there has been a lot of Telugu population. Some reports suggest 20% of these H1B visa holders are from the state of Telangana. How do you see the economic impact of a policy like this in America?
First of all, in the first hour or so, there were a lot of concerns that there will be immediate disruption. But an increasing number of clarifications emerging, it's not that disruptive at this point of time because the 2025 applications, which are already locked in and they picked up in a lottery or something, they're all free. They're safe. True. It's only for the future. So there's no immediate disruption. Second of all, American enterprises need these skills. The only question is whether they will be working in the US or outside the US. Now, information technology and the modern technology like robotics and artificial intelligence, much of the work is footloose. You don't have to be in a factory at a particular place to deliver that service. You can be anywhere in the world and do the same work. Now, if they find it convenient now to have it on shore, on location, and therefore Indians are going there and working, they'll find it convenient tomorrow to work offshore and work wherever is convenient. So I think a significant number will be employed in India by those very companies. Already the global GCCs, they call global capacity centers. So they're already multiplying in India. India probably the biggest destination for GCCs in the world. More will come of that kind, and they will utilize the talent here. Some may even go, in case they require very frequent visits close by, some may even go to Canada or Mexico. Just after a border across, and you can, a short flight, you can reach there. So I don't think it will affect the employment. Only thing is, those who wish to settle down in the United States, there's no, it's a dream of many, many people all over the world, and definitely many in India, to settle down in the United States. Go as graduate students, and then finish post-graduation there, then get H1B visa, then get an employment, and hopefully get picked up for the green card, and then eventually citizenship, etc. Now that path is substantially closed, except for a small number of people, I presume. And the other significant change will be American universities will no longer attract as many people as they were attracting earlier. Indians, I understand, are the largest number of overseas students in the American universities, paying hefty fees, much more than the domestic students. Now, most of them are going, not necessarily to the greatest universities, but to the second level universities in the hope that once they get a decent graduation, they'll get employed there and all that. Once that is closed, why should they go and spend that kind of money when you're not getting income in dollars, large scale later on? It's just not worthwhile. So what will probably happen is American universities will feel the pinch. Suddenly there'll be some decline in their investment. Many of them, if we encourage them, they'll probably establish shop here, which is a good thing for India because many more people in India will get access to quality education. And the fee structure will be much lower because, after all, given the purchasing power of rupee, it should be at least one fourth, if not even less than that, in terms of the fee structure. So, all in all, well, immediately there may be some disappointed people and some hopes may be dashed. I think India may benefit, but provided we play our cards well. For instance, take Bengaluru, which is a big magnet, but the infrastructure is allowed to decline so badly. Transport is now coming to a standstill, paralysis. So we have only ourselves to blame. So we have to Clean Power Act. Now Hyderabad is imitating Bengaluru in terms of, though infrastructure in the city is better, transport bottlenecks are almost as bad as in Bengaluru. That's not the kind of thing that we should imitate Bengaluru. So if we clean up our act, if we do the minimal things required to have better quality of life and better traffic management, etc., and integrated traffic management of all the multimodal transport systems like, metro, MMTS, RTC, and so on and so forth. These are all low-hanging fruit, low cost, zero cost. You just have to make the effort. Then I think, given the infrastructure available in cities like Hyderabad, people will come back. Real estate probably will pick up here for that reason. And in the long term, actually, India will benefit. From American point of view, well, the way it's done is perhaps a little too dramatic, typical Donald Trump style. I think it's generally agreed that H1B system or immigrant system is in a bad shape. For instance, picking up people at random on lottery basis. What kind of a system is that? We are supposed to be picking up people of quality and skills for a specified visa. Unrelated to that, you take all the pool of graduates from various universities with different kinds of skills as one pool and then pick up a lottery because there is a demand. It's too silly. So maybe they'll also clean up their system of immigration. Let's see what will happen.
So then this brings me to my last question. In the past few months, we have seen India and US have been going back and forth on different issues. And even the heads of the government have been saying certain things on Twitter in terms of being warm to each other in good way. But then the policies have been slightly different, and the spokesperson from the White House and other people have been using a different tone for India. And then this comes into the picture, knowing that Indians are the biggest holders of H1B visas. How do you see this affecting Indian and US bilateral agreements and relationships, and the larger picture of India-US relationships with President Trump at the helm of things?
No, unquestionably, not only India, but the rest of the world also, people who were very strong and long-lasting friends of the United States, like, Britain, France, Germany, Japan, other countries, Europe, Southeast Asia, East Asia, etc. Even if some semblance of normalcy is restored, even if this tumult dies out eventually, the kind of trust and confidence that people repose in the United States institutionally or in terms of a security guarantee, India never sought a security guarantee, but those who sought American security guarantee as a guarantor or as a market, and in general as a beacon of liberal democratic values, probably it will be very difficult to restore that trust for a long time. Because America does not seem to distinguish between friends and enemies, and everything is transactional, everything is mercantile, and autarkic approach is now prevailing. Some of it may be Mr. Trump's style, but you cannot deny some of it also is because American establishment has moved from the liberal values of global trade, global order, and uniform rules of the game, certain principle-based foreign policy, etc. That is, at least for the time being, given up. So there will be some significant loss of that unseen capital, that trust and credibility. Now, when George Bush Jr., for instance, in the administration argued that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, many people believed. After all, we don't know much. American president is saying that. Once it was proved to be untrue, America misread the intelligence and then they overconvinced themselves and tried to convince the world. America lost face. America lost a lot of credibility and their global power is diminished. So for great powers, the trust, the faith, the credibility are incredibly important. That I think is seriously undermined. Insofar as India is concerned, on the one hand, the long term strategic relationship makes sense because there is no serious conflict between American interests and Indian interests. Some of it is simply temporary storm in the teacup. So that engagement will continue. But trade difficulties being what they are, and the visa difficulties being what they are, at the popular level, there will be some amount of wariness as opposed to the enthusiastic and warm response to the United States earlier. If you remember when Bill Clinton came to the United States, even in the face of, just then I think they removed the sanctions or about to remove the sanctions after Pokhran explosion. When he addressed the Indian Parliament, the whole nation was saying, wow. And members of Parliament, including the Communist Party members, I remember they stood on the benches to greet him, the charisma and the American warmth and friendship. That I think it will take a long, long time to rediscover. That is a little sad because these are the two largest democracies in the world. And we have many, many values together. And the people of India genuinely admire the United States. US people may or may not know much about India because one New Yorker cartoon long ago, it exhibited a cartoon of the New Yorkers' understanding of the world. He says first Fifth Avenue, then New York City, rest of the world. So they may not care for the rest of the world. But a lot of Indians, particularly the educated, even the uneducated ones, the cultural impact of the United States, its economic power, and the legends and the stories that are woven around the United States. And of course, for the middle and upper middle class people, the United States is almost like second home. So I think it will take quite some time to recover that kind of a warmth of feelings between the peoples.
Thank you so much, sir. That was Dr. JP. We trying to understand the shorter and long-term implications of the H1B visas policies of President Trump. Thank you.